areas in the maritime sector, from aquaculture, maritime transportation, maritime labor regulation, oil and gas exploration, ferry and passenger insurance, marine pollution and prevention, port operations, and lots more. Maritime Frontiers, exploring Nigeria's blue economy.
Are you ready for the extraordinary? Something big is happening on your screen. Introducing VOP TV. Now streaming on SLTV channel 264. From breaking news to captivating conversations, news analysis, giving you all sides to the story. We break in-depth discussions on the issues that matter, from politics to sports, entertainment, and lifestyle. VOP TV on SLTV channel 264. Join us as we redefine what television means to you. Voice of the People Television, VOP TV. Now you have more than a voice.
In a world where power shifts with every headlines, news breaks and events happens, we bring you unbiased and explicit information on politics, economy, and state of the nation. We break down the chaos. Facts, not fluff. Truth, not spin. We discuss not just politics, but a glimpse into the future. Join Moses, Chukuma, and Fina on Voice of the People TM. Voice of the People Television. Now you have more than a voice.
Welcome to the locker room, the home of football talk that matters. I am Jerry Arpayon. Join us every weekday, Monday to Friday at 5 p.m. Nigerian time, as we share the hot takes and hot debates in the exciting world of football. And joining me are the usual suspects, Ikechukwu and Mayowa, as we break down all the hot takes and everything that's happening in the football. Don't just watch football, live it with us. Catch us on the locker room and Voice of the People Television at 5 p.m. Nigerian time. And like I always say, if not 20 minutes off, with the sport.
This is African News on Voice of the People Television, where we don't just bring you the news, we bring you Africa's heartbeats, the policies that shapes our world, and the economy that determines our future. African News on Voice of the People Television. Stay with us.
Do you want your voice to be heard? Do you know that you matter in the scheme of things? The People's Voice, the show where ordinary citizens take center stage as we discuss the biggest stories that affect you and I. With you in mind, we facilitate lively discussions, debates, and interviews on the topics that matter most to you and I, from social justice to economic empowerment, education to healthcare, governance, and more. Tackling tough topics and amplifying your voice. Join the conversation and make your voice count. The People's Voice. Make your voice count.
Voice of the People. You can hear me now. My name is Patrick Doyle, and I wish that you continue to echo the voices of the people. Big up VOP TV.
My name is Suibifa Dokubo. Please keep watching VOP TV.
Hi, my name is Kwekumali Ikenda Onyekwena, and I am with the Voice of the People TV. Now, if you're looking for the veritable channel for information, politics, robust discussions, you don't need to go far. VOP has you. VOP will always have you. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Patrick Diabwa, aka Ibani Chuka, Amayanabo the Eagle King, and you are watching VOP TV. Stay with us.
Well, hello and welcome to the African News on Voice of the People Television. I am David Edwin. Before we begin the news, we would urge you to kindly visit our website, www.vop.ng, for fresh and trending news stories. We begin the African News from the story where U.S. President Donald Trump brought the leaders of Rwanda and Democratic Republic of Congo together in Washington to sign a peace and economic cooperation agreement. The event came even as new clashes were reported back home in the two countries. The deal is part of Washington's push to secure access to critical minerals while projecting diplomatic strength. Trump described the signing as the end of decades of conflict despite ongoing violence in eastern Congo. Reports from South Kivu confirmed fresh fighting between M23 rebels and Congolese forces during the ceremony. Analysts say U.S. pressure has slowed escalation but has not addressed the root causes. Critics argue the agreement is driven more by competition with China than by genuine peace building. For many residents of eastern DR Congo, the humanitarian situation remains unchanged despite the high-profile signing. Still talking about the DRC, residents of Goma says they have yet to see any real change despite the peace agreement hailed as historic in Washington. Many remain skeptical as fighting continues near their communities. Locals described a painful pattern in which political leaders announce process while violence persists on the ground. Fresh clashes in South Kivu this week deepens fears that the latest deal may not hold. Analysts also warn that implementation, not symbolism, would determine the agreement's success. They say unresolved issues and economic interests could undermine the fragile process. More than anything, people in Goma want the violence to stop. For them, peace means silence on the front lines, not signatures abroad. And from the DRC, we go to Kenya, where the United States and Kenya have signed the first in a series of new America First global health agreements aimed at shifting responsibilities to partner nations. The 5-year, $2.5 billion deal replaces multiple programs formerly run by the now dismantled USAID. Under the new framework, funding will move from NGOs to the Kenyan government, which will gradually take full responsibility for health workers initially reported by the U.S. Kenya also pledged to increase its own health spending by $850 million. Officials say the partnership is meant to promote self-sufficiency and strengthen systems tackling HIV/AIDS, malaria, tuberculosis, and polio. President William Ruto of Kenya said the deal supports his universal health coverage agenda, including equipment upgrade, supply chain improvements, and health insurance expansion. U.S. officials expect several African countries to sign similar deals soon, although Nigeria and South Africa are unlikely to join due to political differences with the Trump administration. Critics warn that eliminating USAID has already cut funding for hundreds of programs focused on maternal health, nutrition, HIV and AIDS. Meanwhile, the World Health Organization says malaria killed about 610,000 persons in 2024, with most deaths occurring in sub-Saharan Africa. Children continue to make up the majority of victims. Global cases also rose sharply, climbing from 273 million to an estimated 282 million. World Health Organization officials warn that drug resistance, climate change, funding cuts are undermining years of progress. The parasite's history of resisting new treatments remains a major concern. Past resistance to chloroquine once pushed deaths above 1.8 million annually. A newer class of drugs known as artemisinin has helped reduce fatalities, but they are now facing growing resistance as well. Experts fear gains made since the early 2000s could be reversed, particularly in Ethiopia, Madagascar, and Yemen. Away from health matters, the United Nations has raised urgent concerns as landmine deaths increase while funding for demining operations declines. Experts meeting in Geneva say civilians are being killed or injured almost daily in conflict-affected regions. UNMAS warned that programs in Afghanistan, Nigeria, and Ethiopia may shut down by March without fresh donor support. In Sudan, only 5 clearance teams remain active in Khartoum, where millions have returned to areas still contaminated by explosives. Access challenges also persist in Al Fashar, which endured more than 500 days under siege and continues to face sporadic shellings and suspected landmine presence. Nigeria demining officials say displaced persons risk returning to dangerous uncleared land. Experts emphasized that mine actions is not a slow, long-term recovery process, but an emergency humanitarian necessity. They say consistent funding is vital to prevent further civilian casualties. And in Tanzania, the U.S. is reviewing its relationship with Tanzania following concerns over religious freedom, free speech, and violence against civilians after the October election. The State Department warned that Americans in the country could be at risk. Right groups and the UN say hundreds were likely killed during post-election clashes. Though the government disputes these figures, human remains are reportedly being buried in mass graves or incinerated, according to UN experts. President Samir Suluhu Hassan has pledged to investigate the violence and maintains the election was fair. The U.S. review also considers obstacles to American investment in Tanzania. Officials emphasizes the need for accountability and transparency to restore trust. Observers note that the situation could influence broader U.S.-Africa diplomatic and economic engagement. Moving on, Niger has accused French nuclear group Orano of predatory practices and environmental crimes after radioactive materials were found near former uranium mining sites. The military-led government warned the company could face criminal proceedings over mass crimes. Orano, 90% state-owned by France, denied operating at the Madaoula site and said it had received no legal notice. Radiation tests reportedly found reviews far above normal, with substance linked to respiratory harm. The dispute follows Niger's nationalization of the Somer mine in June, stripping Orano of its majority stake. Niger recently began transporting uranium from the site, defying the World Bank Tribunal order that barred access to the stockpile. The row highlights a broader trend in West Africa, where military-led governments are asserting more control over natural resources. Niger remains a key global uranium producer, historically supplying France with around 15% of its nuclear fuel. And from that story, we'll go straight to the Middle East, where the Middle East and North Africa recorded their hottest year on record in 2024, with temperatures rising at twice the global average. Heat waves are becoming longer, more intense, and putting pressure on human health, ecosystem, and economies. Average temperature in Algeria peaked at 1.64 degrees Celsius, above the 30-year average, while the region faced both severe droughts and flash floods. Consecutive failed rainy season in Morocco, Algeria, and Tunisia compounded water scarcity issues. More than 300 persons died last year due to extreme weather, with nearly 3.8 million affected overall. The World Meteorological Organization warns against urgent investment is needed in water security and early warnings system. If emission continues at current levels, temperatures in the region could rise by up to 5 degrees Celsius by the end of the century. Experts stress that adaptation and mitigation measures are critical to reduce future risk. And in Tunisia, Tunisian police arrested opposition figure Najib Cherbi to enforce a 12-year prison term, signaling an intensifying crackdown under President Kais Saied. Cherbi, 82 years of age, has been a prominent political figure since the 1970s. Dozens of other opposition leaders, lawyers, and business figures received jail sentences up to 45 years in the same conspiracy. Some, including Chaima Issa and Ayachi Hamami, have begun hunger strike demanding release. Authorities accuse the defendants of attempting to destabilize the country and overthrow Saied. Critics argue the changes are politically motivated, aimed at silencing dissent through the judiciary. Saied maintains he is combating corruption and holding all implicated individuals accountable. Opposition groups and rights organizations say the crackdown has intensified since Saied assumed extraordinary powers in 2021. Well, you're still watching the African News right here on Voice of the People Television. We'll go straight to the analysis segment of the news. And in the studio right here with us to help us make sense of these stories and more is Dr. Peter Anosike. Dr. Peter is an erudite scholar in economy, finance, education, and also is a major writer right here in Nigeria. Doctor, a very good afternoon to you, and thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. All right, let's get right into it. Interestingly, this story has been spanning through the course of the week, and I'm talking about the arrest of opposition figures in Tunisia to the point where sentences up to 45 years have been given. I mean, in the past 1 week thereabouts, dozens of opposition figures have been arrested by the security operatives, clearly on the basis of the fact that the president presently is saying that he is clearly combating corruption and holding implicated individuals accountable. What's your position with this kind of conversation, Doctor?
Well, for me, mind you, it was in Tunisia that Arab Spring started.
Right.
And it started because of bad governance. That one guy has to pour fuel on himself and set himself on fire.
Right.
So, and it led to changes in governments in many countries that's in the Arab world.
Right.
So this guy should learn from history, because what is happening in Tunisia now is exactly what happened in Tanzania before the election.
Okay.
So, the members of the opposition that were arrested were not given a fair trial, or the arrest was just politically motivated, because the incumbent is not sure of a retaining power.
Okay, now again, as it stands, Doctor, questions are being raised about the fact that he's particular about opposition figures and not people in his government, which again, some have said in his government there are other corrupt individuals who are still in government and still working for him. Interestingly, as it stands, Ayachi Hamani and of course Chaima Issa have begun hunger strike in prison. You did mention of the Arab Spring a couple of minutes ago. Should this continue, are we most likely going to experience something similar in Tunisia again with these hunger strike by Ayachi Hamani?
That's why I say he should watch what he is doing, and he should also be mindful of history. Understand? Because history has a way of repeating itself. But or the way the human brain is wired, we look more outwards than inwards.
Okay.
That's why he's not seeing the corruption in his own government. And if you read the history of Alexander the Great, Alexander the Great went ahead overthrowing corrupt governments all over the world without knowing that that thing is even worse in his own government. So for me, I'm not saying that he should not fight corruption.
Right.
But those being arrested, being only members of the opposition, doesn't make sense.
In other words, he should be more holistic in his approach.
It should be holistic. And the people, it shouldn't be fiat. People should be given the opportunity to defend themselves.
Now, interestingly, Doctor, as it stands, some have said right now with this kind of prosecution and, of course, quick judgments coming to opposition, the judiciary is a shadow of itself in Tunisia. What's your position with the fact that, yes, about 5 to 45 years jail sentences have been handed over to oppositions in less than 1 week, yet there are still some people still awaiting trial in the same country that have not gotten that level of prosecution.
Imagine when an 82-year-old person is given 45 years, which means you expect him to live around 130 years.
Right.
So for me, it's not right. You can see that this is politically motivated, and he's just doing it to diminish opposition.
Is there the possibility that judiciary as it stands would maybe publish their trial records and maybe put the audits in public?
No, that's by giving this hurried judgment.
Right.
It means that the judiciary in Tunisia has compromised. It means that government, that is the executive, is controlling the judiciary. If not, why must you give a hurried judgment without following a due process?
Now let's talk about the economic implication of these kind of decrees by the presidency to clamp down on opposition. On the part of FDI, how much of investor confidence can this give, knowing for a fact that foreign direct investments comes either ways when they see that a leader in power seems to be authoritarian, as it were, or as it is right now in Tunisia?
One, there's no how a foreign investor can go to any country where the judiciary is not free. But do you understand me?
Okay.
It means if he has issues, he cannot get justice. So that is one of the reasons why FDI doesn't have much impact in Africa, because our judiciary are corrupt. They are complicit. They have become the appendage of the government in power. So you cannot, even if you have all the money in the world, you cannot invest in a country where you cannot get justice if you have an issue with the people or with government. So basically, and again, when oppositions are being haunted, it means that human rights are not being respected. There's no freedom of speech.
Okay.
So it would be very wrong to invest in such a country.
Now, again, the human rights group have termed this level of prosecution and judgments coming as a sham. And that, again, do you think is going to have an implication in the global perspective of Tunisia?
Well, it will change the way the international community looks at Tunisia.
Okay.
Because what is happening is an aberration. Opposition figures are tolerated in all the countries of the world,
right,
except in Africa. So, and if the human rights groups begin to mount pressure, it might affect the aids that are coming to Tunisia.
Now, let's look at public resistance. As it stands, the people of Tunisia are presently saying, well, critics in Tunisia are presently saying, look, release these guys that you have in your custody, because they are being vocal about your government, which again, on one hand, is them trying to call you to order. Is there any act of human rights violation should the critics continue like this? It
is only in Africa that criticism is being seen as witch hunting, understand, or wishing a government a fall. Criticism is just to redirect the government where you are going is wrong. Come this way.
Okay.
Criticism is meant to put the government on its toes,
right,
to make it to begin to work for the people. So those criticizing government should be seen as friends of government and friends of the people. So criticism doesn't mean hatred.
Right, right.
It doesn't mean hatred. So they should see them as people helping the government to succeed. But because when you are not being criticized, you become cognizant.
Okay.
And when you become cognizant, governance will begin to fail.
Well, again, that again truly is a stance that even the world over accepts, because yes, when you're criticized, it simply means that you need to also do better than what you're doing. Let's get to another story, Doctor. Interestingly, the Middle East and of course some part of North Africa have suffered quite a bit of climate change, basically having their hottest year record in 2024. What do you make of this level of heat wave that is becoming more longer and intense than the norm?
Well, there's a global warming as we speak, understand?
Right.
The world is becoming hotter than before. And mind you, the Middle East, the Arab world are in Sahara Desert area, which is dry, understand me? So it is having its own effect. Even in northern Nigeria, the Chad Basin is drying as we speak. And that's why most of the people who are farming there are now coming downwards. That's to the south.
Right.
So it's happening everywhere. So the only way is for them to look for alternative. Understand me?
Okay.
Finding ways either to combat it.
Is there ways to combat this, Doctor?
There should be. Understand? There should be things that now we are talking about green energy,
right,
green revolution. Those things can be used to combat global
warming. Now, the fact that, yes, the world is diversifying to the part of green energy and green life is on one part. How much of an economic impact, Doctor, can this level of heat wave, which again have caused several droughts for farmers in these North African countries, how much of an economic impact is this going to have on the economy of these countries?
It is having a very serious impact on the economy As I said, the Chad Basin used to be a very big, very big on agriculture.
Right.
But because it is drying now, youths who are farming there have now come to the south of Nigeria to ride Okada. Understand me? So the same thing in the other areas, and it is also causing insecurity, because they say a hungry man is an angry man. Where somebody is farming has dried up, he has no other source of income, he can take to crime.
Okay.
So this is not only causing a hunger, it is also causing a insurgence.
Now, how can the government of these countries do better with having to start off their green economy, aside the fact that, yes, we hear that there is a need for planting more trees, more around us, but how can these countries do better without rains?
It's about information. I mean, it's about innovation.
Okay.
Understand?
Okay.
Dubai, UAE is on deserts. The ports in Dubai were artificially created.
Okay.
And today, Dubai is one of the most busiest ports in the world. Artificial ports. So,
okay.
Iran is having a scarcity of water now, Iran.
Right.
Because of this, understand? And they are now begging Israel, who use the artificial way of that to get water, that to help them with water, unless they will starve that to death, because they have not developed that technology which Israel has done. So it's about innovation.
And if this government fail to be innovative, that simply means
they
that
will die.
They will go under. Well, Doctor, let's jump to another conversation because of time. Niger Republic clearly is again at the neck of the French government because the uranium row intensifies with the fact that they are accusing the nuclear group known as Orano of predatory practices and environmental crimes after a radioactive material was found near former uranium mining sites. Again, the government of Niger wanting to be vocal, even though they've sacked, of course, the French government from their territory. What say you about this?
What they said is the truth, because French government, we are very, very predatory in Africa.
Right.
In those Francophone countries, they were not treating them with respect, they were not treating them with concern. There's nothing you can say that the French government did in most of those Africaphone countries. Go to Cote d'Ivoire, go to Niger, go to Togo, you cannot see their presence. Their interest is just taking their natural resources without other people getting anything back in return.
Even with their security base in those countries?
Sure, understand me. Those security bases are not for the interest of those countries, it's for their own interest. One, to curb violence and uprising. To use those security bases to put the people in check against the revolution.
Okay.
Understand? So for me, if they had not done it, they should begin to nationalize anything that French has in their country.
Well, again, the Nigerian leader has defied, the World Bank Tribunal order as against transporting uranium from that same site. Looking at these kind of order that have been given before, and the Nigerian government are defiling it. Some have said as it stands, there might be some countermeasures. What countermeasures do you think might happen? I mean, one that comes to mind is asset freezing and, of course, insurance withdrawal. Is there the possibility that Niger is going to suffer more?
They will not suffer more. They will not suffer more. Understand?
Why do you say so, Doctor?
Mind, even in Nigeria, around 1973, 74, 75, there were nationalization of British properties that in Nigeria.
Yes.
And then the PC was nationalized. And then this was not the original name. So if they have not started doing it, the Niger should be for the Nigerians and not for the France. Understand me?
Okay.
Africa for Africa. So they should start taking possession. That's why Mugabe of Zimbabwe was my guy. He stood up for Africa and died for Africa.
So why do you think, Doctor, why do you think the World Bank Tribunal placed that sanction on Nigerians from transporting uranium, something clearly it's found on their soil? Why do you think the World Bank Tribunal made that decision?
Imperialism. That is imperialism, but I don't think, for me, that is a ceremonial institution. It has no power of enforcement.
So, Doctor, if you say this now, and
it has no power
fears of counter, what's that word now?
From which country?
Well, from the World Bank themselves. On the part of maybe not granting Niger any kind of loan afterwards.
But the president of Burkina Faso rejected the World Bank loans, and they are doing well. Understand? The president of the leader of Burkina Faso rejected the IMF loan, World Bank loan, and they are doing well. And the best way to develop is to develop internally. Use their own resources to develop. And that's what India did. That's what Singapore did.
So you think as it stands, internal development is
the best way to go, even though it will take time. Understand? But that will make you truly independent.
Now, Doctor, looking at the fact that, yes, as it stands, the Nigerian leader has broken off the cord of wanting to stay with the directive of the World Bank Tribunal and, of course, has transporting uranium. You think the leader or the Nigerians, as it were, would see very good buyers and they will not get sanctioned by, even by maybe IMF, as it were?
I say IMF sanctioning African countries is a good thing. It will help them to look inwards. World Bank sanctioning African countries is a good thing. It will make them. Do you know, for 5 years, Nigeria, under Sani Abacha, Nigeria was in sanction. But Abacha held the economy for 5 years. He only increased fuel from 9 naira to 11 naira. For a whole of 5 years, under sanction. Understand?
Okay.
Our economy was strong. Understand? So that's why I respect the former president of Croatia. He said instead of we borrow, let us die. Understand? Instead that they will borrow from IMF or World Bank, let them perish.
So
and they surged forward.
And of course, that brought about that level of development found in that country. But then again, Africa is a peculiar nation, Doctor. Is there the possibility that the Nigerians would again get some support from their African nations, fellow African nations?
I don't know of the fellow African nations.
In terms of doing trade, Doctor.
But currently, they are scrambling for Africa by the Western powers. United States, China, Russia. Understand?
Right.
They always get big powers to do business with.
All right, then. Let's jump. Oh, goodness me. I'm just checking the time and it's running past fast. Let's get to Tanzania, where the U.S. is presently reviewing its relationship with Tanzania based on that situation that you also did mention earlier, the post-election conflict that happened in that country. Madam President Samia Suluhu has said that she would carefully look into that situation, even though reports say that over 1,000 civilians died post-election. With these kind of conversation, Doctor, and of course with the U.S. government clearly telling her people in Tanzania to also be careful, would this strain relationship with Tanzania and Washington?
The woman knew what she did. Understand? The woman knew what she did. She succeeded an authoritarian.
Right.
Understand?
Right.
She succeeded an authoritarian because she deceived the people because she was soft and spoken, calm. They felt that a different person has come on board. Understand? But they don't know that she was hiding her evil self.
But some have said that this is an act of intimidation from the male counterparts who are, again, opposition. You think that is the reason why she did all she did to retain power?
A woman who her party, CCM,
yes,
was gendering people in the opposition, disqualifying them on technical reasons.
Tundu was one of them anyways.
So that there wasn't any, imagine winning over 98% in this modern world. That showed you that it was a manipulated process and a manipulated election.
Now, Doctor, I keep talking about institutions.
But she agreed that people died.
Yes, but never gave a figure.
But she put it to foreign actors. Then who are those foreign actors?
Now, again, like I said earlier, Doctor, she also had said that there's some level of intimidation and, of course, some people wanting to topple the government by force because they lost an election. Shouldn't that be another? I mean, she's the president. She has intel.
Who can topple it's only the military that can topple the election. Unless we want to have what happened in Guinea-Bissau, where the person that lost the election invited the army to take over instead of handing over to the opposition.
Okay, now, Doctor, are you saying that Madam President Suluhu clearly was very aware of what she was doing?
She was instrumental to. I carefully studied that election. I carefully studied the election, and I knew that she was conscious of the intimidation, the harassment, the gendering, the disqualification of the people in the opposition to make it very easy for her.
And by that, you think she did not have, of course, like her office is saying that there were some intel about some people toppling the government by force, thereby going into media houses to say things that made the level of insecurity in the nation got to that level.
If she has won the election, we will not have witnessed that level of protest.
Doctor, before I let you go, AU observers were in that election, and their report was that the election was free, fair, and credible.
But what of EU? EU condemned it.
Well, what EU condemned clearly was also on the part of post-election. But if African Union is clearly saying that the election was free, fair, and credible, and of course congratulated her afterwards, and days later coming to say that post-election violence shouldn't be tolerated, what say you about that institution, African Union, having a double voice on election matters in countries like Tanzania that has a little bit of fragile democracy?
One, AU, it's a damn dog. Understand? It's a damn dog. If you clearly win an election, you win the heart and mind of the people. Right. Because it's the people that vote. Understand? If they vote for you and you were declared winner, there will not be a lot of violence. Okay. But the people troop out to the streets that to protest, to them say that more than 1,000 people died, means that election was manipulated. Oh, and there's nowhere in the world that anybody now wins with more than 56%. Nowhere in the world.
Well, honestly, statisticians will clearly argue that as well, just like you're doing, where an election is won by 98%. That again was about the factor that several persons have been complaining about. But because of our time, really, this is where we have to draw anchor on the analysis segment of the African News. We've been talking with Dr. Peter Anosike, an erudite scholar in economy, finance, and of course, government. He's also a major economist and a writer right here in Nigeria. Once again, thank you so very much, Doctor, for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
We'll take a very short break right now. When we return, more stories on the African News will be up next. Please do stay with us. Glad to have you back. It is still the African News right here on Voice of the People Television. Now to more stories. Traders expect Nigerian, Ghanaian, and Kenyan currencies to remain steady against the US dollar in the coming weeks. Central bank intervention and steady demand are supporting the naira, while Ghana cedis is benefiting from a seasonal slowdown in dollar demand. Kenya's shilling is likely to hold near currency levels as it has for over a year. Banknotes only minor activities as businesses closes their books for the year. Ugandan shillings may strengthen due to low hard currency demand and remittance inflows. The festive season typically reduces local appetite for dollars, helping the currency gain. Zambia's kwacha could come under pressure from increased demand for imports during the holidays. Analysts say year-on-year demand for hard currency may cause mild weakness in the kwacha. Moving on, Morocco plans to increase the share of drinking water supplied from treated seawater to 60% by 2030, up from 25% amid 7 years of drought. The government is accelerating construction of desalination plants powered by renewable energy to secure water for urban centers and farmlands. The country aims to produce 1.7 billion cubic meters of desalinated water annually from projects under construction and upcoming tenders. The largest plant near Tiznit will cost about $1 billion and supply both cities and agricultural regions. Currently, Morocco operates 17 desalination plants producing 345 million cubic meters annually, with 4 more under construction to add 540 million cubic meters by 2027. Plants are planned in Nador, Tanger, Rabat, and Tantan, some in partnership with international groups. Innovations like floating solar panels on dams are being used to reduce evaporation and conserve water. Morocco is expanding such experiments to dams in southern and mountainous regions to further enhance water security. You're still watching the African News right here on Voice of the People Television. We'll go on another quick break right now. When we return, more stories in African business and sports will be up next. Please stay with us. Glad to have you back. Now to some African business stories. The South African rand strengthened further on Friday, breaking below the 17 round mark after the country posted a smaller current account deficit. Traders say the improvement eased pressure on the currency. Analysts noted that the government's issuance of dollar-dominated Eurobonds for the first time since 2024 also helped lift sentiment. Dutch Bank set initial price guidance between 6.625% and 7.750% for the 12th year and 30th year notes. Economists say rising net foreign reserves added additional support for the rand. Central bank data showed reserve climbing to $70.024 billion at the end of November. South Africa's benchmark 2035 government bond also firmed in early trade. Yet its yield slipped by 1.5 basis points as investor confidence improved. And to wrap up the African news, we go straight talking some sports. FIFA's last-minute decision to shorten player release period has left African national teams scrambling ahead of the African Cup of Nations in Morocco. Players will now join their squads from December 15th instead of 2 weeks before the tournament. Several countries, including Senegal, Angola, DR Congo, Mozambique, and Ivory Coast, have cancelled or revised training camps in Europe and North Africa. friendly matches planned to prepare for the competition are also being reconsidered or cancelled. Coaches say the decision disrupts months of careful planning, creating logistical and tactical challenges. Angola's coach, Patrice Bouemel, described the change as frustrating and exhausting after extensive preparations. Critics argue the move prioritizes European clubs over African football. Mali's coach Tom Saintfiet called the timing disrespectful, noting FIFA had known the tournament dates since June of last year. And with our sports story, we've come to the end of African News right here on Voice of the People Television. Do well to subscribe to our YouTube channel. On YouTube, we're at Voice of the People TV, and on all other social media platforms, we are at VOP TV Live. Thank you so very much for being a part of this broadcast. I am David Edwin. Do have a good afternoon.
This is Health Check, your weekly guide to better living, smarter choices, and trusted answers. From everyday wellness to urgent health issues, we've got you covered. Health Check, only on Voice of the People Television, where your health has a voice.
In a world where truth is the ultimate power and opinions scream the loudest, it's time to wade through the noise.
Hunger no get tribe! Hunger no get religion!
And scan the human interest and trending topics that matter. Stay tuned to The Issues, your plug to the stories making the buzz, from politics to science and technology, social justice, and more. Let's tackle the tough questions and expose the truth. The Issues, on Voice of the People Television, Mondays to Fridays, 8 to 9 p.m. The Issues. Don't just react, understand.
Are you ready for the extraordinary? Something big is happening on your screen. Introducing VOP TV. Now streaming on SLTV channel 264. From breaking news to captivating conversations, news analysis, giving you all sides to the story. We break in-depth discussions on the issues that matter, from politics to sports, entertainment, and lifestyle. VOP TV on SLTV channel 264. Join us as we redefine what television means to you. Voice of the People Television, VOP TV. Now you have more than a voice.
The 2564 is coming up on Burning 9, right?
The 2564 Atlantic Tower.
What happens in the hush behind hangar doors? Who signs the papers that gamble with lives? Which truths were grounded before they even ever had wings? If you've ever buckled a seatbelt at 30,000 feet, if you've ever stared out of that tiny window and wondered who's really in control of the skies, it isn't just flight, it's power, it's politics, it's pressure sealed in steel. We're peeling back the clouds from runway risks to sky-high secrets. We're diving deep where most dare not to look. Aviation Scope, every Sunday at 7 p.m. only on Voice of the People TV. We don't just report, we reveal. We don't just ask, we uncover. Because when it comes to the skies, ignorance is turbulence. Aviation Scope, the sky isn't the limit, it's just the beginning.
Welcome to the locker room, the home of football talk that matters. I am Jerry Arpillon. Join us every weekday, Monday to Friday at 5 p.m. Nigerian time, as we share the hot takes and hot debates in the exciting world of football. And joining me are the usual suspects, Ikechukwu and Mayowa, as we break down all the hot takes and everything that's happening in the football. Don't just watch football, live it with us. Catch us on the Locker Room and Voice of the People television at 5 p.m. Nigerian time. And like I always say, if not 20 minutes off, with the sport.
Behind every broken desk lies a broken promise. Education shapes the nations. But who is asking the right questions? Introducing Edu Dialogue, the show that goes beyond the surface, exposes the cracks, the corruption, and the silence in Nigeria's education system. Edu Dialogue, Saturdays, 3 p.m., only on VOP TV. We break the biggest stories, from missing funds to policy failures. We ask the tough questions and demand real answers. Edu Dialogue, this Saturday, 3 p.m. on Voice of the People television.
Bantu Stephen Biko, born December 18, 1946, was a South African anti-apartheid activist. Ideologically an African nationalist and African socialist, he was at the forefront of a grassroots anti-apartheid campaign known as the Black Consciousness Movement during the late 1960s and 1970s. His ideas were articulated in a series of articles published under the pseudonym Frank Talk. Raised in a poor Xhosa family, Steve Biko grew up in Ginsberg Township in the Eastern Cape. In 1966, he began studying medicine at the University of Natal, where he joined the National Union of South African Students.
We have to teach our children black history. Tell them about our black heroes, our black culture, so they don't face the white man believing they are inferior. Then we'll stand up to him any way he chooses.
Strongly opposed to the apartheid system of racial segregation and white minority rule in South Africa, he was frustrated that the Union of South African Students and other anti-apartheid groups were dominated by white liberals rather than by the blacks who were the most affected by apartheid. He believes that well-intentioned white liberals failed to comprehend the black experience and often acted in a paternalistic manner. He developed the view that to avoid white domination, black people had to organize independently, and to this end, he became a leading figure in the creation of the South African Student Organization, SASO, in 1968. Membership was open only to blacks, a term that Biko used in reference not just to Bantu-speaking Africans, but also to coloreds and the Indians. He was careful to keep his movement independent of white liberals, but opposed the anti-white hatred and had white friends. The White Minority National Party government were initially supportive, seeing SASO's creation as a victory for apartheid's ethos of racial separatism. Influenced by the Martinician philosopher Frantz Fanon and the African-American Black Power movement, Biko and his compatriots developed Black consciousness as SASO's official ideology. The movement campaigned for an end to apartheid and the transition of South Africa towards universal suffrage and a socialist economy. Biko believes that black people needed to rid themselves of any sense of racial inferiority, an idea he expressed by popularizing the slogan, "Black is beautiful." In 1972, he was involved in founding the Black People's Convention, BPC, to promote black consciousness ideas among the wider population. The government came to see Biko as a subversive threat and placed him under a banning order in 1973, severely restricting his activities. During his ban, he received repeated anonymous threats and was detained by state security services on several occasions. Following his arrest in August 1977, Biko was beaten to death by state security officers. Over 20,000 people attended his funeral. Biko's fame spread posthumously. He became one of the earliest icons of the movement against apartheid and is regarded as a political martyr and the father of black consciousness. His political legacy remains a matter of contention.